Before you start today's lesson, you just need to make sure you've got two different coloured pens, a pencil and a ruler handy. If you haven't got that, just pause the video for 1 second and just grab those few things for me. Okay, so the aim of today's lesson is to answer this 6-mark exam question, which is describe the structure of an atom, including properties of its subatomic particles. Now, to do this, we're going to recap some of the stuff we did right at the very beginning of year 9. So we're going to look at the following things: the names of the 3 subatomic particles, their location in the atom, their mass, and their charge and the overall charge of an atom. Okay, so just to recap, an atom, they are tiny particles that everything is made up of, and they've got a radius of 0.1 nanometers. Atoms are so tiny that a 50p contains about 7.74 times 10 to the 22 of them. So that's 774 followed by 20 zeros after it. That's how many atoms would fit in a 50p. The nuclear model of the atom is the one that's shown on that diagram there, and it shows a small nucleus surrounded by electrons. So let's look a little bit more in depth at an atom. So starting with the nucleus, so we're looking at the bit in the middle, so where it's all clustered together, that bit just there. So the nucleus is always found in the middle of an atom, and it contains 2 subatomic particles. It's got your protons in it, and it's got your neutrons in it. Now, your protons are positively charged, and your neutrons have no charge at all. They are neutral. So if you've got positively charged protons and you've got neutral neutrons, what is the overall charge of the nucleus? It's got to be positive, okay, because you've got positive atoms, subatomic particles, and you've got neutral subatomic particles. Now, the nucleus is only 1/10,000th of the size of an atom. So it's really, really small part of the atom, even though it contains the majority of subatomic particles in it. So the other thing that's in the atom, the 3rd subatomic particle, is the electron. And the electrons move around the nucleus. And they are your negatively charged particle. So electrons are really, really tiny. They are much smaller than protons or electrons. They're that small that nearly all the mass of an atom is actually found inside the nucleus. The electrons make up a really, really tiny fraction of the whole mass of an atom. Now, you can see from that little diagram going around there, the little animation, that the electrons orbit around in fixed shells around the nucleus. So obviously helium only has 1 shell, but you need to be aware that there could be up to 4 different shells orbiting around that nucleus. So the first little task you're going to do for me today, you're going to try and answer me these 4 questions. So number 1, what 2 subatomic particles make up the nucleus? Number 2, what subatomic particles orbit the nucleus? Number 3, whereabouts in the atom would you find the nucleus? And number 4, what do electrons move around the nucleus in? Pause the video now and answer those 4 questions, please. Okay, right, now grab your different coloured pen because you're going to mark your answers. So for question 1, you should have put neutron or proton. Give yourself a tick for both of those. If you haven't got it right, like you do at school, write in the correct answer in your other coloured pen for me, please. Number 2, what subatomic particle orbits the nucleus? That is the electron. Number 3, whereabouts in the atom would you find the nucleus? It's in the middle. And number 4, what do electrons move around the nucleus in? They move around in electron shells. Okay, next little task for me. You're going to draw me a labelled diagram of an atom. So I've already put this up a couple of times. I'd like you to draw me a labeled diagram. Now, the labels that you need to include on your diagram are on the right-hand side there. So you've got proton, neutron, electron, nucleus, and shells. So you've got 5 words that you need to label in your diagram. Pause the video, draw me that diagram now, please. Okay, so again, grab your different colored pen, and you should have had something very similar to this. So you've got your nucleus in the middle, which contains your neutrons and your protons. And then you've got your electrons orbiting around the nucleus in their electron shells. Now, extra marks if you manage to put on that the protons are positive, the electrons are negative, and the neutrons, you should have left them neutral. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Protons, they've got a positive charge. Now, we give them a charge of +1. Electrons have got a negative charge, and they've got a charge of -1. So they will balance out the charge of the proton exactly. That's why we give it a +1 and a -1 for your electron. Your neutron has a charge of 0. Okay, so that's our 3 different charges on our 3 subatomic particles. Now, the masses, protons and neutrons have a mass of 1. Now, the mass on an electron is tiny. It's nearly 0, but you can't put 0 in your exams. Okay, you need to use something different. So what we like to use is this word. We like to put in very small. Okay, so that's what you need to write down when you describe the mass of an electron. It is very small. Do not put 0. Okay, so you're going to do for your third task, you're going to construct a table like I just had on the previous screen, and I'd like you to now fill it out for me. So pause the video for me again and construct that table and fill out the missing values for me. Okay, so grab your green pen again, or your different colored pen, whatever you're using, and we're going to fill this out. So protons should have been +1, neutrons have got a charge of 0, and electrons have got a charge of -1. Your mass of your proton is 1, your mass of your neutron is 1, and your mass of an electron is very small. Okay, just make sure that you don't mix up the relative charge row with the relative mass row. Okay, one way to figure that out is you could never get a mass of -1 with your electron. So you know you're right with your mass numbers always have to be positive. Your charges, that's where you can have negative values. Okay, so the overall charge of an atom is 0, so we say that they are neutral. Now, if an atom has 4 protons, which is a +1 charge, how many electrons will it have if an overall charge of an atom is 0? It should have 4 electrons as well. So then your 4 protons, your 4 +1 charges will balance out your 4 negative charges from your electrons, and we get that overall charge of 0 on an atom. So for example here, this is an atom that's got 7 protons, 7 neutrons, and 7 electrons. Now, if you've got 7 protons inside that nucleus, you've got 7 positive charges there. So overall charge in that nucleus is +7. Now, if you look at the electrons, you can count them. There's 7 electrons there as well, orbiting in their shells. They've all got a -1 charge. So if you've got 7 lots of -1 charge, you've got a -7 charge orbiting around the outside. So +7 in the nucleus, -7 in the electron shells. Those balance each other out, so you end up with an overall charge of 0 for your whole atom. Okay, so next little task for me. I'd like you to try and answer this question. Why do atoms have no charge? Pause the video now and answer that question for me, please. Okay, so you should have put something similar to this. You need two parts to answer this question. The first part is by stating that atoms have the same number of protons as electrons. And then because the charges on the protons are +1 and the electrons are -1 are opposite and equal in size to each other, then they cancel each other out. Okay. Right, so from everything you've done today, everything you've got written down in front of you, you should now be able to answer this 6-mark question. So describe the structure of an atom, including the properties of its subatomic particles. So you're looking for a nice description of an atom, and in that description, you need to be including these things, the names. It's really important that you name those 3 subatomic particles. Their location. Where are they in the atom? Their mass. Okay, so remember, some have got a mass of 1. The third subatomic particle has got something a little bit different. How would you describe it? And then finally, their charges. What are the charges on those 3 subatomic particles? And what is the overall charge of the atom? Okay, so I want you to submit that for me. All your work that you've done today, if you could take a picture of it or submit it as a Word document and put it on Teams for me. And next lesson, I will put an ideal answer to this question for you, so then you'll be able to mark that. But I want you to have a go at this without me putting the answers up. Okay, I'm going to leave that on. If you need this leaving on to answer that question, pause it now. I'm going to end the video. Good luck with it, and I expect to see lots of great work from you submitted to Teams. Thank you. Bye.